Ray Williams. Lonnie, why don't you come up front? And he is running for State Representative District 7, Position 1. And Lonnie, why don't you just take an opportunity to greet our audience?
Thank you. Push up. Thank you very much. Thanks for showing up. That's actually the most important thing that each and every one of us can do. Right now in our country, we have a huge challenge, perhaps one of the greatest challenges of our lifetimes going on. And it's going to take people to decide to show up and get involved. And thank you for participating in this. This is the single most decision of your life, perhaps. Who we're going to vote for in this next election is probably a lot more important than the decisions we've made before. We look around us and we see the challenges in our country. And it's important to show up, whether as a voter to make that investigative decision to say, hey, who is the person that is best to represent me? Make no mistake about it, the primary thing that we must understand when we're electing somebody is they are to be our representatives. They are to be our servants. The number one thing that we should be asking about each and every one of these candidates, do they know the Constitution? Do they have a strong moral compass? Are they grounded? Can we rely on them? Will they take a call at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and come help me change your tire? These sort of types of servant leadership that are the things that we're supposed to be looking for. We need a people that is not afraid to tackle difficult decisions. We need a people who's not afraid to put founding values first. What I mean by that is, number one, parents are the primary stakeholders of their children's lives. If we don't have a government or a representative or leaders that actually want to drive this issue, there's no use fighting for lower taxes or education or anything else if we don't have control over our own children. We must have the right to raise our children in our own faith, in our own ways, in our own cultures, without government getting involved in telling us what to do. So my number one priority is to enshrine parents' rights and to enshrine parents as the primary stakeholders of their children's lives. I don't believe you can call yourself conservative if you're not willing to stand up for parents' rights. My number two thing that I'm focusing on is to make sure that education dollars follow the students, not failing institutions. That means for every one of those $18,000 that we generate, we want to make sure that that's attached to a student. And what I mean by $18,000, in this state, there's $18,000 earmarked for each student. Every time we've raised the amount of money that we spend on our students, our grades are dropping. So whatever we have been doing, we need to take a 50,000-foot look and do things differently.
Hey, Lonnie, thank you for your time. But we're watching some time, and everybody gets the same questions.
Oh, okay.
So you can incorporate some of those things in future questions. But I have 4 questions for you today, and Jenny is our timekeeper. We give you 3 minutes on each one. She'll give you a yellow paddle when there's 30 seconds left. The first question, Lonnie, has to do with homelessness and lawlessness. The Spokane area is facing difficult challenges with both homelessness and lawlessness. If elected, what steps could you take to address homelessness and lawlessness? And if your office is not directly involved with these issues, how would you work collaboratively with other elected officials on these 2 important areas?
Thank you for that question. This is something near and dear to my life because roughly 10 years ago, I was homeless. I was a homeless veteran after suffering a stroke. I lost my house, I lost a family, I lost everything in my life in 2008. Couldn't sell a house, couldn't do anything else. So I know what it's like to be on the other end of that spectrum. And what I didn't need was a handout. I didn't need a permanent solution. What I needed was an organization, a faith-based organization, which actually did come in, lift me up, and put me back together and help me back on the path. What I didn't need was a government solution. Government has never been a good nanny. Government has never been a good healthcare provider. Government is not good when we need people of compassion. So homeless is important to me, but number one, I would make sure that we use our faith-based community as part of the solution. We must bring our communities together to tackle homeless in each individual community. It cannot be a government solution. Government can help and facilitate, but it must be community-oriented. Lawlessness goes along with homelessness. We must be a nation of laws, but we must be a nation of sensible laws. So first off, we need to audit our laws and make sure they're constitutional, and ensure that the laws that we do have are enforced and the police have proper funding to allow them to do their jobs.
Thank you, Lonnie. The next question has to do with election integrity. Questions have been raised by citizens about the election integrity in Spokane. If elected, what practical steps would you take to improve confidence in our elections process? And if your office is not directly involved in the elections process, how would you work collaboratively with other elected officials to address election integrity?
Thank you. That's one of the most important things that we face. The elections that we have every 2 years, every spring, whatever the election is, whether it's a school bond, these are the things that are the most important part of our republic. Our elections must be transparent first and foremost. We've got a lot of regulations and a lot of laws that have been passed in the past couple of years to make it so that things are not transparent. So transparency is number one. Number two, we need to make sure that we're cleaning up our voting records. We shouldn't turn this over to an organization that's funded by George Soros or anything else. We should have independent-minded organizations working throughout each county, not beholden to the state, but beholden to county legislators to clean up individual county roles. Whenever we have a state solution, we're turning over county business to a state that might not necessarily do it in a way that we on local control have. So my solution is to return to local control, make sure that we're having good auditors, making sure that we can control our local election system so that locally we can feel comfortable with that. If we can't deal with this on that level, then and be transparent and have actually a Republican Party that doesn't want to do ballot harvesting, that's one of the challenges we have is our leadership is okay with about half of the things we disagree with. We need to make sure that leaders listen to the people and actually follow our guidelines as far as saying we don't want ballot harvesting. We want to make sure that every vote counts. We want voter ID. We want basic, simple, honest voting.
Thank you, Lonnie. The next question has to do with abortion rights. The state of Washington now has the opportunity to enact legislation on abortion rights. What elements of legislation in the abortion rights arena would you favor, and what elements would you oppose? And if your office does not directly impact this area, what's your personal stance on this important issue?
The biggest and most important thing in my life is the life of my children. I've seen so many people grow up and turn into wonderful, beautiful creatures that are in control of wonderful, positive things in this world. I'm stumbling over this because life means so much to me. We send spacecraft to Mars looking for a single cell to call it life, but we're afraid to call life, not me personally, but some people are afraid to call life single cell life because they have to own up to some degree of personal responsibility. I don't believe that abortion should ever be used as birth control, full stop, complete. I don't believe in abortion at all personally. I believe that life is life. And I don't think that we should sanction somebody else removing that life. On the other hand, I know that there are some circumstances, as small percentages as they may be, the tubal pregnancies and other things where there should be exceptions. The challenge for me is how do we know? How do we as legislatures actually write every single exception? It's an impossibility. We have to come back to a moral society to where we're not normalizing this type of behavior. We need to encourage people, one, to be personally responsible, two, teach a sex education that is actually focused on personal responsibility, abstinence, and the other thing, and at least start to value life again. We need to appreciate life again, and that starts with our communities and letting people know that, look, there is an option for you to carry this baby full term. There is loving, great people who would love to have this child, who can't have children of their own. My mom was an adopted person in those sort of circumstance. If her mom decided to say no, I wouldn't be here. So because of their challenges, I know that my whole life, my children's life, my grandchildren's life, and all that is based on someone's decision to keep that child, my mom. And so that means a lot to me. And I think everybody in this country needs to value life a lot more and understand that every one of these human beings has an opportunity to become the greatest saviors of our country, the greatest soldiers, the greatest nurses, the greatest people to move this country forward if we only give them a chance to be the greatest versions of themselves. And that's what we must move towards as a society, to allow each and every one of us to be the greatest versions of ourselves from the first cell until the last heartbeat.
Thank you, Lonnie. Are you running against anybody in your race?
I am. I'm running against Jacqueline Maycomber.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, this is our final question, and you can take some liberty with this question. We appreciate your willingness to run for public office. Thank you. The two candidates in this race each have different priorities, experience, and qualifications. What factors do voters need to know about you and your opponent that make you the very best candidate?
Thank you. Number one, I want to represent you. And what that means in this 7 counties, this is the largest district in the state. It's the 11th largest in the country. And in order for me to properly represent all 7 counties, I need to make sure that I have a town hall in every one of these counties every single month. I must make myself as a legislator available so that people can come to me. And if somebody wants to lobby, they must come in this public forum so that I can turn to the people and say, what say you? We need to get out of the idea of we voted for somebody, they get to decide. That's not what a representative is. A representative is someone who goes forth and delivers your choice. So in order for me to do that, you need to tell me how you want me to vote on these bills. You need to tell me if you want an amendment. And I'm not going to vote for a bill that I don't read. I'm not going to vote for a bill that you don't tell me what to do. That separates me from day one from just about anybody. I want the same type of government that our founding fathers gave us. And that's what I'm here to deliver first and foremost. I won't vote for bills that aren't conservative. I won't vote for a bill that funds illegal aliens' education system. I won't vote for a bill that makes racist hair. I won't vote for a bill that makes our state patrol officers have diversity, inclusion, and racist things in their training. I'm not going to vote for those. That's what's going to separate me from my candidate. I encourage you to look at voting records, see what the candidate has voted for, and then ask yourself, is that conservative? Is that what I want in a representative? And if not, then I think the choice is clearly for me. If you're looking for someone who's constitutional, who wants to represent you, and won't vote for crazy leftist bills, I'm your guy. If you want someone who's going to compromise, if you're happy with the way things are in Washington State, you can vote for the incumbent. But I encourage you to take a look at me, Lonnie Ray Williams, LonnieRayWilliams.com. Look at my platform. Look at what I've been standing for. Look what I've been doing for the past couple of years. Look at the people I've been standing for, even before I've been running. It's about representing you and bringing us together as a country and helping us to create the greatest country that the earth's ever seen. And I think that we can still do it if we put our hearts together and remember we're Americans and come together.
Lonnie, thank you so much for your responses. How about a round of applause for Lonnie Ray Williams?